K-Rugs, the sober dog, coming at ya. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for supporting, Sober Dog, supporting me. You guys are awesome. You're the best. Thank you very much. Today's video, marijuana maintenance program. What is it and does it work? Let's get right into it. The marijuana maintenance program. People do interesting things to stay sober. People say that this works and that works. I do some interesting things. In the beginning, I would drop to the floor and do push-ups if I was having a craving wherever I was. Work, Walmart, Target, the parking lot, didn't matter because it just got the craving out of my head. I don't know, something to take my mind off it. One thing that a lot of people do, and I did this myself, is the marijuana maintenance program. Basically, what is it? It is, when you stop harder drugs or alcohol and smoke weed to cope with your addiction or to get through it, during your sobriety or when you stop the harder stuff. Some people, may have smoked weed their whole life through their addiction and just kind of didn't stop it, but put down the harder stuff. Or other people might, have stopped the harder stuff like, heroin, coke, or alcohol or whatever, and picked up the weed because somebody said it helped or, whatever the case may be. So that's basically what the marijuana maintenance program is. Some people say it's substituting addictions. We'll get into that in a little bit. Does the marijuana maintenance program work? The science behind it with, all the addiction specialists, addiction doctors, and, addiction counselors who compile the data and study and research this stuff, the general conclusion is no, it doesn't work. With that being said, marijuana is taking a new turn in the United States. So with, it being legalized in a lot of places, it's going to be, more able to be studied and stuff like that. So, excuse me, hasn't really been enough data to really be conclusive, but the majority of the addiction scientists say no, it doesn't. I did the marijuana maintenance program for, about a year, my version of it, whatever, to try to cope and deal with addiction. The reason it didn't work for me was I did exactly that. I stopped heroin and coke and was smoking weed now, and I didn't smoke weed during my addiction. Now, yes, marijuana is a lot less dangerous than heroin and coke, but the reason I was using it was the same reason I was using the other drugs, to escape reality, to cope with feelings and, past issues that I never wanted to deal with or cope with. So when I would smoke weed, I was doing it for the same effect, the same intention of get out of my own head and escape facing my life, the truths, the reality. Most addicts, and 99% of the addicts and alcoholics, I've met in my life, have some type of underlying issue or reason or issues or reasons they use drugs and alcohol. That might be a past sexual abuse, sexual trauma, PTSD, mental health disorder that was never treated, self-esteem issues and anxiety, something, that just we didn't really either learn to cope with healthy, or when we found something like drugs and alcohol that quieted all those thoughts, we were like, wow, and just, clung to it. So with the marijuana maintenance program, if I quit heroin and coke, but I'm still using this substance to, avoid facing my feelings and be high, then it kind of defeats some of the purpose of, when I got sober, I had to face why I was using so many drugs in the first place, those underlying reasons. And if I'm avoiding them with smoking pot every day, I'm not really getting to the root of facing my addiction and dealing with it. That was a big issue for me, and I think with a lot of people. A lot of people, and this is something I did too. I didn't want to face the fact of getting sober, so I could still get high on something by smoking weed. I would justify it with every different thing you could do, and I've heard this through a ton of people. I said it myself. A lot of common justifications. Weed is far less dangerous than alcohol, than dope, than coke, whatever. That's what people will say. Also, I'm not addicted to it. I could stop anytime I wanted, or I'm not addicted. It just calms me down. Or I need weed. A lot of people smoke weed to, calm their anxiety and their depression. I have to have it. It's my medication. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you if, you need weed, or someone in your life who says those things need the weed. I don't know. I can't answer that. I know I said all those things to whoever asked me, like, hey, you're supposed to be sober and you're smoking weed, More, I said them to convince myself that it was okay to keep smoking pot. They kind of knew I was full of it, but I wanted to kind of convince myself so that I could justify keeping, getting high. That, and again, it's one of those weighs and balance things of, yes, it is the lesser of two evils, but sobriety is not just about stopping whatever, substance or substances are, a problem or creating problems. It's about, a new lifestyle, about living a new way of life. And part of doing that is finding out what is really feeding these negative, lifestyle choices and feeding the addiction. And I feel like that's hard to do smoking weed. You're not really going to dig into it and really get to it. Substituting addictions. A lot of people say the marijuana maintenance program is substituting addictions. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Again, a lesser addiction, but it absolutely is. Substituting addictions, for anyone who might not know, it, as described, is, I smoked cigarettes and then I quit, but then I started eating a ton, substituting one addiction for the next. So if I'm doing dope every day, heroin, and then I stop, but I'm smoking weed every day, yes, I did substitute my addiction. It is a lesser addiction, but it's still an addiction. Some people substitute addiction with exercise, which is, definitely a lesser or more positive addiction, but can still be dangerous. Some people substitute it, with eating, gambling, things like that. Some of these can be just as dangerous in a different way, but whatever. And a lot of people say, certain people are addicted to like AA and meetings, but that is usually the only addiction that all, scientists and doctors agree is an okay one to have, like being addicted to going to AA meetings when you're substituting. But for the marijuana maintenance program, in a lot of cases it can just be substituting addictions. So that's not, necessarily a good thing, something you want to look out for. Now, the Journal of Experimental, Analysis of Behavior also concluded that marijuana does have a direct result on motivation. So what they meant by that and what they did the study as far as, smoking marijuana for people in recovery is that they found it directly did result motivation of potentially going to meetings, potentially like meeting up with a sponsor or going to a group or a counseling session, going to a treatment program, or doing, positive things for recovery. So if, I'm smoking pot and during my sobriety, and I'm maybe saying, I'm going to, skip treatment today. I'm just going to lounge around, or I skip the gym or skip this. it starts to affect other little areas slowly but surely. So that can be something that can also be an issue with the marijuana maintenance program. Maybe not for everybody. I know some people can smoke pot and, do their whole day fine. I definitely never could. And I know a lot of people who, struggle with that. Now, with the marijuana maintenance program, one of the hidden dangers that I don't think is really thought about a lot, if I'm in New York. Now, if you're in California or Colorado, it might be a little bit different, but marijuana is still legal in New York, and it's still illegal at a federal level. So when I quit, all these hard drugs, if I'm still smoking weed, I still got to go to somebody to buy it. A couple times when I was doing this, I'm still going to a drug dealer, buying it, and the people hanging around there are still doing other hard stuff. The dealer's still got other hard stuff that he doesn't care if I'm sober or not. He's still offering it. There can be a lot of people just in that general circle that aren't doing the good, positive things. And even though I might say, I don't care, I'm just going to go there, get a little bag of weed and leave. You never know what kind of unintended consequences could come of that. So in my opinion, I would just rather not even put myself in that position of even going there, buying it. So these are other little things that kind of take into consideration with the marijuana maintenance program. For me, it didn't work. It was not good at all. For the majority of the people I've talked to, it was not a good thing, didn't help them, ended up being more of a hindrance. But, again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you exactly. In my opinion, the marijuana maintenance program is not good for somebody who wants to truly be in sobriety and recovery and kick their, and get rid of the hard stuff, not be a slave to addiction anymore. I value my sobriety and recovery way too much to even give it a chance with going back to smoking, pot or doing any of that. I do not want to go back to being a slave to heroin and coke, no matter what I got to do, and marijuana's out the window for me. So, all right, that's my video on the marijuana maintenance program. Hit that like, that subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. K Ruggs, the Sober Dog. I'm out.